It's been a couple days since we got a video out, but guys, we are just slammed right now. Doing some feeding with our cattle this morning. I'm gonna go get this string off here off this hay bale. So what we got here, we moved all the cows down to this back kind of quarter-acre area with a bunch of trees, and we're still kind of in the process of clearing this area here. You can see there's a bunch of trees down over there, and there's one cow off by herself over there. Oh, two, I guess. Okay. Anyways, we are kind of loading this area up with some scrub hay right now, so giving them obviously something to eat, but also we just wanted to make sure that we're getting plenty of seed on the ground. So that made me think, hey, I need to talk to y'all about how we build pastures, how we overseed, how we reseed, how we get the seed on the ground. So let's talk about some pasture basics here real quick. The first thing is that we have to realize that there is natural seed in the ground that's local to your area, that has been there for years and years and years and years and years. Look out, girls. Let me through. Excuse me. Excuse me. Anyways, so seed's already in the ground. So we can get by actually without planting seed. If you look at Polyface Farms, he's never planted a seed in 60 years. So we don't have to plant seed. There are some benefits to planting seed. Some of the benefits are we get established quicker. We get erosion under control immediately. And we get to kind of pick our grasses and pick things that are maybe a little bit more oriented towards grazing. So there's some, I'm gonna set this camera down here real fast while I get this string off. So the pasture seed is really pricey. That's the problem that we run into with it, is that good pasture seed, we put down some Bermuda, or actually we didn't put Bermuda in this mix. We will when we reseed here next spring. But Bermuda was $200 for a 50-pound bag, and the fescue, what else we put? Fescue and Bahia, those were about $160 a bag. So that's why we didn't put any Bermuda down. It's just too expensive. I really wanted to put it, but it was just going to get really pricey. So anyways, we look at these different seeds and build our monoculture pasture out of this. So, got a couple options for getting some seed on the ground. The first option obviously is to go and buy it, set it out with a broadcaster or a seed drill. And seed drills are really pricey. So unless you're doing a lot of acreage, you don't want to use a seed drill. Broadcasters don't get as good a germination rate, but probably, I don't know. I wonder if I would assume close to 70% the germination of a seed drill. But either way, substantially cheaper. So unless you're doing a lot of land, that's what a broadcaster looks like. By the way, it's that thing back there. Anyways, the broadcaster will throw some seed out, right? And then just slings it out there on your ground as you drive by on the tractor. And it's a little bit harder to control how much you use per acre. It's one downside with it. But what we do, the way that we build it, is first step is to rip up the soil and till it up, right? That's what the traditional mindset is. We don't do that. There's a couple of reasons we don't do that. And it's not that we're against tilling, because we even hire out local tractor work and we till people's green fields and stuff like that, people's gardens, because we have a tiller for the tractor. And tilling is very good in certain instances, but it's generally overused. That's my problem with it, is that it's not that tilling is so bad inherently. It's that it's just really overused. So every time you till, you break up the root and the soil mass that's building underneath the ground, and that bacteria kind of connects those roots, and it actually turns your pastures into kind of like one organism. And it's really interesting. And when you till, you start that process over again. You break that up. You add organic matter to the soil, but you break up the bacteria. So you gotta be careful about how much you till. There are times and places for tilling, and so again, we're not anti-tilling, and we do some here. The only reason we actually didn't till this area was because there's so many roots and it's so steep and hilly that there was no way that tiller would have ever done anything. It would have taken us a year to get everything tilled up, and so we're better off getting the grass seed down, getting the root balls to rot. And in 5 years, if we decide to till it up, then that's one thing, but probably won't, honestly. At that point, there wouldn't be much need to. We're better off planting seed that naturally does our tilling for us, right? Things like sugar beets that have a big long taproot, and they break up the soil because they pull all that nutrients up. They send this taproot down, 10 feet down to the ground. They pull a bunch of nutrients up. They break up the soil up at the top and aerate it a little bit, and you just leave the sugar beet in there to rot, and the cows will eat the top off of it. Or you can even pick up the sugar beet if you got a way to harvest it. So anyways, there's ways of building your soil without tilling, but tilling, if you have really scrubland soil, is not a bad option to start. The other thing that tilling does is if you till it several times, so if you go through and till it and then kind of let things regrow and then till it again before you plant some seed, you can get rid of some of those undesirable plants, like down here we have the Chinese privet, we have sweet gums, and these sweet gums, they pop up everywhere and nothing eats them. The sheep will a little bit, and the cows will kind of nibble on the leaves, but really nothing touches them that much. So that's why I stay away from the sweet gums, is because they nothing really wants them. That's why we cut all of them down here, because I don't want them on my property. I want to get rid of them as much as I can. And so if you till up the root balls on those, and the Chinese privet, then you can do something, and you can get them gone mechanically without having to spray them with a bunch of Roundup. So tilling has some advantages and some things going on with it. Bottom line is that there are obvious reasons to till, and that it is not this horrible negative thing that people seem to think that it is. It is wildly overused. So that's the problem that we get into. So these gnats kind of bother me. That's the problem that we get into with it. So we did not till simply because we weren't able to, not because I didn't believe in it for this part of the property. So this, you can see, this is what we're dealing with. It's scrubland that had all these overgrown trees on it. We cut them down. We deal with all the stumps there in the ground because you can't grind up that many stumps. You just gotta let them rot over the next 5 years or so, which is fine because they add carbon to the soil. But then we got to add our seed and get some grasses coming out, because if we don't, these stumps will all reshoot, and they do that anyways. And so I really want some things that'll choke them out. And so how do we do that? Well, first thing we can do is we can get good quality hay on the ground. So that's why we don't use hay rings. We want the cows to spread out the leftover hay. We want that carbon getting added to the soil, because we got a lot of clay soil here. So we really are trying to increase our organic matter to the soil. But we also want the seed coming from the hay. So if you go buy like horse quality Bermuda hay to feed your cattle, which is what we'd like to do in the winter time, you don't get any seed from that, because coastal Bermuda doesn't have seed. And so you got to realize there's not going to be any seed from that. What you're looking for is, you're actually looking for kind of that scrub hay, stuff that maybe was left out for a year, that doesn't have a lot of nutritional quality for the cattle. As long as you have some other supplemental feed, you can't just feed them that. But that's what we do, is we buy scrub hay that's a year-old hay that was left out, $13 a round bale, and it's going to be a mixture of Johnson grass, bahia, fescue. We can have tons of different seeds in there. So that's what we want. We want a nice polyculture of seeds. And then we get that all on the ground and get the ground covered with just bunches and bunches of hay, bundles of hay. We got to feed both types. Like I said, we got to feed that scrub hay. We also got to feed some Bermuda, something that's a little bit quality, that'll have some benefit, some nutrients for the cattle. Now, the next step then is obviously get some seed on the ground. And so you can go to the store and you can pick up a seed mix. The seed mixes, the problem you run into with them is that seed mixes have a lot of inert matter. Look at the back of it on the ingredient list on the back. But on the ingredient list on the back, it'll have an inert matter content, and you're going to see like a number of 30 or 40%. That means almost half that bag, a third to half that bag, is nothing. It's filler. It's junk from the factory, so that they can charge you more for it. So there's a lot more inert matter in seed mixes than there is in raw seed. Raw seed still is coated, so it's got some inert matter, but there's a lot more inert matter in the seed mixes. So we buy raw mixes, and then we mix our own here. Now, there's different ways of mixing. Obviously, if you're doing a lot, you need like a feed mixer or something like that to actually blend up those seeds. We just put them in a 55-gallon bucket in our barrel and roll it around and flip it over a dozen times or so until it's nice and mixed. You can also put your post hole auger down in there and get it really good mixed up if you do that. But we mixed up some seeds, and so this batch of seed, what we put in here was fescue, bahia, Sudan grass, which is like a ryegrass that's a little bit better for grazing. It doesn't come up quite as fast, but it's an annual, and it's the only annual we put in here. Everything else we put in here are perennials that'll reseed and have the capability of reseeding for next year, because that's what we want. We want to build our soil, and perennials will build that soil. Annuals, that Sudan grass, only going to come up this 1 year, and that's okay. We just want to get it covered. We wanted to get some ground cover on the ground so that everything else can come up and have a little bit more organic matter in the soil, have some moisture in there. It'll give us something to graze here immediately before the fescue and the bahia take hold. Next year, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to throw out more Sudan grass. Actually, we'll probably put out a ryegrass next year because it'll come up real fast. It'll give us something to graze early in the spring. But we're actually going to mix that one with a Bermuda. And then we'll have Bermuda, we'll have fescue, we'll have bahia, and then we have all the seeds of the grasses from the hay that we brought over here. So we've got a lot of stuff coming, and a lot of seeds coming in the ground. Then we want to mix those with some legumes to get some nitrogen in the soil, right? So the next thing to add to it is what we put in there is we put a little bit of alfalfa, a little bit of clover, and the clover we get mixed. That's because I found mixes that have kind of low inert matter in them. I found a mix that had like 12% inert matter in it, which isn't bad, and then it's got a bunch, like 10 different types of clover in there, and anyway, so we put that out there, and then we mix that all in with the grass seed, and then we add things like alfalfa, because alfalfa has a higher protein content, but we don't want just straight alfalfa fields, obviously. But we wanted some alfalfa seed out here, and we want to get that, like I said, we want it reseeding year over year, and really want to increase our organic matter here. So, and our seed bank here in the soil. So that's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to do. The last thing that we're going to throw in there is we're going to put sugar beets in there. And sugar beets, like I explained earlier, they're going to send down that taproot, and that taproot's going to get real deep real fast. It's going to pull up a bunch of nutrients. That fescue root will go down about 16 feet actually, but the fescue root problem that you run into with the fescue root is it's going to take a year or two probably to get that deep. It's going to take some time, and the taproot on that sugar beet is going to take 1 season. It's going to shoot way down there and pull up a bunch of nutrients, and that root mass there is going to be like a little store of nutrients for the soil, and that's going to bring it all up top. It's going to rot in place and just degrade there, and have all that nutrient bank right there in the soil. So, and then it's going to kind of break up and till the top soil for us, and help loosen that soil a little bit. So the cows will eat the top off of it. It'll work real well. So there's a number of things that we want to put in there. Now, if we had more land, I would actually take several seasons to build this soil. I'd probably take 2 or 3 years to build this soil, and not really have cattle on it at first. If we had more land and I didn't need to graze this right now, what I would probably put on here the first year is I would probably put a grass mix. I'd probably do that same mix, but I would let everything grow up, maybe graze it twice just to get everything down a little bit, but I would be a lot heavier on the sugar beets. I would put a lot more sugar beets in here to break up that soil a lot. And then at the end of the year, I'd probably disc everything into the ground, and then do a similar seed mix next year, just without the sugar beets. And you could even just do the sugar beets and not do anything else, and just put those in and then let them grow up, graze them a couple times, and then turn them all into the ground. So there's some options there to break up that soil, but and it doesn't have to be sugar beets. You can use a beet that grows in your area. But anyway, so guys, that's how we build our soil. That's how we build the seed bank here in the soil. It takes time. It is not an overnight process, and it takes a lot of time actually, and it takes time to clear the land. And you can see over here, there's just nothing but scrubland. You can see behind me, this is land that we've cleared, that we've been actually haven't been working on, but we just cut a little area here. This is what it looks like after we're done clearing an area. And you can see you got sweet gums, that oak starting to shoot through, and it's just scrub crap. And so what we're going to do is we're going to push the brush off to the side. We're either going to burn it or let it rot. We do a little bit of both. We may hire a mulcher to come in and grind up some of the piles, and then we'll come back here and we'll probably till some of this into the soil to kill those sweet gums. but you know, you can't do too much because we've got roots in there that are just like crazy that the tiller can't go through. You need a lot bigger tractor than this to get those done. So that's the issue that we run into with it. But we're making progress. And luckily we pick cattle that can live on the scrubland. They're out here eating the trees in the bush just like goats do. They break it all down. They're already clearing out some underbrush so that we can get the tractor back here and get some work done. And so what we'll do here in about a month is we'll move the cows off, let them graze some of that Sudan grass, and then we'll actually come in here in this forested area and I'll push a bunch of these trees into the center with the tractor, a bunch of the little trees, and we'll move the cows back here for another, I don't know, probably 45 days while the grass continues to grow. And then they'll actually eat the tops of all those trees that we push down too. They'll just love it. So, and then after this year, this land over here should be completely clear and should be nothing but grass. And it'll have a bunch of stumps in there. I got it. It may not look the prettiest. Probably, you know, you can't drive a four-wheeler 30 miles an hour over it, but because there's going to be way too many stumps in there. But over the course of the next 5 years, those stumps will be nice and rotted. They'll add that nutrients back to the soil, that good organic matter back to the soil, and have lots of manure on it. And then we get to start working on this side over here. And this is 15 acres over here that we're going to be fencing. We're going to be fencing about 7 acres here this year. And what we'll do actually with the cattle is we'll just put them in here for the year. We won't even rotate them in here. We'll put up a waterer and a mineral mix, and we'll just let them go crazy in here for about a year. We'll keep putting them in here and pulling them off, and putting them in here and pulling them off, because they'll eat everything down in here. And these guys will get fat on this. Now, commercial cattle won't, but our guys will. And so we'll keep bringing them in here and then pulling them off and regrazing the grass over here on the other side. But this way it'll allow the grass some time to recover. So we got to get this fencing up here. That's kind of an emergency. So anyways, guys, just wanted to go over that with you, show you how we do the seeding on our property and how we build our seed bank. Cows are fun to watch back there. But all right, y'all, we'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for watching.